Let's see if Ellie Spire, there she is. All right. Let's see if that one works. Ellie Spire is in Brazil, and so the internet connection is not as reliable. There she is. Hello. Ellie Spire, can you hear us? I don't know if your mic is muted.
If we can give her just another second, sometimes it takes a minute.
No sweat. Yep. Thank you for chiming in, Sarah. Do you want to maybe start NoodleArms by describing what inspired you to choose this charity?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Sorry.
You guys, I mean, you're not going to... My answer is just kind of a load of BS, to be honest. I bought I saw that I was buying a Space Pogger. I saw an elephant with the beer can hat. I was like, ooh, gotta have it. That resonates with me. And then figure, you know what? Let's do the elephants. I've always been supportive of everything animal related. That's what I went to school for, even though that's not what I do for a living in the least bit. So let's keep it relevant. Let's stick to elephants. They pretty big. You can't pull a rug out from under them.
Unruggable.
Yeah, they're unruggable. And yeah, I've just had a lot of interactions over the years where, you know, this would be a good thing to bring light to and always support. I mean, granted, I know there's a million different charities with animals out there that we could have supported, but I felt the elephant tribe elephants were the most appropriate.
Well, I definitely agree. And it seems like the Global Sanctuary for Elephants does a lot of hands-on stuff, more of a Steve Irwin type than an administrative type, which is always wonderful.
Absolutely. Yeah.
There she is. Apologies for the technical difficulties. She's gone. Sarah, would you like to possibly give us an introduction, and then whenever Ellie Spire comes up, she can share her bit?
Sure, I'll go ahead. We are an organization called Global Sanctuary for Elephants, which is based in the United States, and we are currently, our pilot project is based in Brazil. It's called Elephant Sanctuary Brazil. It was started in 2013. Scott Blaze, who is the founder of this charity, he founded the largest elephant sanctuary in the United States, Elephant Sanctuary Tennessee. So when he left that organization, kind of, wanted to make more of a global impact. And so a lot of experts from around the world basically came to him and said, there's a crisis in South America. There are hundreds of captive elephants that have nowhere to go. And luckily in South America, they have a lot of progressive legislation where they've been outlawing zoos and captive animals and things like that. So many different states and many different countries are starting to pass these laws, but unfortunately, there are no elephant sanctuaries in Brazil until we founded ours. We are the only elephant sanctuary in South America. So, because of that, we've discovered what an intense need there is for assistance. And, we've rescued 7 elephants so far, which does not sound maybe like a lot to some people, but it costs hundreds of thousands of dollars to do that. And currently, we have 5 elephants. The elephants in South America tend to be elderly. So we're a really small organization. We only have 5 employees in the United States, And as I said, we were created out of a true need. There was just no healthy alternative for these. Scott Blaze and Kat Blaze, who are the founders, have a combined 50 years of experience in working with captive elephants, and Scott is considered one of the foremost experts in the world. He's been working with elephants since he was about 15. So, seeing the depth of compromise that captivity has caused, and wanted the same healing for elephants in other parts of the world that we saw in Tennessee, is basically, we felt like we had no choice. Once you've seen what happens, once you've seen the trauma that these elephants have gone through, once you've seen what humans can do to them, and learn that they're completely sentient, beautiful beings and have the capacity to heal and forgive and love. Once you know those things, then it's impossible to turn your head the other way. And it looks like Elspire might be back.
Let's see if her mic's working. Can you hear us, Elspire?
Okay, well, in the meantime, is there anything that I can sort of talk about specifically that you have interest in?
Well,
Hey, Sarah, can you hear us?
Yes. Welcome.
Hey. Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's okay. This is live.
That's okay, and I just woke up Siri, apparently.
No worries.
Yeah, it happens. I definitely apologize. You guys have been so patient. We've been getting like little blips here and there of what's being said.
No,
Sorry,
all good.
sorry.
All good.
Okay. Sarah, I only heard a little bit of what you said kind of in an introduction to the organization. Is that where we kind of ended up?
Yes, I talked about the introduction to the organization and touched on the need in South America, and that's kind of where I left off.
Okay. By the way, I'm Kat. I have Scott with me. I think Sarah mentioned who we are, but I don't know if you want to go ahead and talk about how we got started with this.
Hey guys, sorry for as Kat already said, sorry for the technical challenges. Since we've been here since 2014, we've learned a lot of issues with technology. And, it always seems to never fail that the time you want to communicate the most is it drops out on you. Appreciate your ability and patience with that. Sarah, also thank you for the introduction. And NoodleArms, thanks for inviting us to participate.
Yeah, man. Absolutely.
So I know Sarah gave a little bit of introduction. Yes, I'm Scott Blaze, co-founded this story. That was started my history with elephants, kind of on the dark side. In the circus, the zoo world, saw a little bit of the worst at this. It's listed as one of the best facilities available for captive elephant program. Young, old, female. Just saw a lot of what shouldn't happen. Activity. At that time, my co-founder and I said, "This is the best of the best. We've got to do better." We're off with this idea of maybe we can help for elephants. So we bought 100 acres in the middle of Tennessee, started a nonprofit organization. What happened was unfathomable, completely unexpected. Even 10 years into the history there, our colleagues didn't believe it until they saw for themselves. When you give elephants space, it is transformative on every level. It is impactful in ways that are almost impossible to fully put into words. And we saw elephants that were listed as autistic and killers be leaders. We saw the self-sacrifice where they would say this elephant been there for 6 months or a year or 4 years. They would morph into what the new elephant needed for there to help with that new elephant. Just fathomable to observe. That actually, they're the ones that drove us to expand. And what we thought initially 100 acres, quickly realized that is nothing for captive elephants. They do get back to migratory nature and start developing herd dynamics everything about them back, including wanting space. So at one point we doubled our size, and then quickly realized that 200 acres is still nothing for elephants. And they pushed us on this journey. And one of the most profound things for us was when we saw a group of elephants that had been there for a few years, living on 200 acres, eventually opened up 1,800 acres for them. We saw yet another level of transformation. You could see when they had this level of it to explore life in their own, with who they want to explore. There is no limit to who these elephants evolve into. We describe it now, years later, as a rediscovery of life, but it's also a discovery of self. To this day, it's unfathomable. Keep saying unfathomable, but just now, earlier today, I was feeding one of the elephants. Lady, I was out in the habitat with her. You just see these elephants that have been neglected for years. Lady has osteomyelitis feet. It's a severe foot infection that eats the bones of their feet. It is one of the leading causes of death in captivity for elephants. And she suffers from this, but she is still out there exploring, has this radiant look on her face. Encountered some other elephants that were in another area close by, and just thinking about them illuminates. When you see this transformation, we don't have any choice but to continue to strive to give all elephants a better chance. That eventually led us to developing Global Sanctuary for Elephants, which is a US-based nonprofit organization, I believe Sarah said, designed specifically to help develop sanctuaries internationally. I think Sarah mentioned also that there's a lot of elephants, a lot of progressive legislation, there's a lot of progressive action, but there are no solutions, or very few solutions in the world. And what we bring to that world is the knowledge of what it takes from the ground up to build these organizations, create not only financial sustainability, but also to build the team, help them understand the complexities and the nuances of what elephants to recover. Yes, beautiful space, massive space is important. The ability to get lost within that space, limiting human interaction, not being open to the public so they don't have invasive noise, they don't have a lot of education put on them, even through the observer's eyes, creates an expectation of them to do something that people want. So this is truly their space. And so we have what it takes to build these organizations ground up. We're here in Brazil. We plan to be here until it is not needed anymore, but we anticipate maybe 3 or 5 years as starts to develop that foundation that is necessary for them to carry forward. And then hopefully that's going to allow us to move forward to help other projects. We've already been asked to help with others. Fortunately, right now, we really are embedded in Brazil. We have a new person working for us, Ingo. He has 30 years of experience working with elephants, a number of facilities, also starting in zoos, working to a sanctuary-style life, worked in Myanmar for some time. And when he came here, he's been with us just for a couple months, said, after 30 years, I finally the first true sanctuary for. So we are excited about him being on board because he's learning a little bit more from our background, our experience with elephant recovery, but we're hoping that he's going to help us explore new horizons and be able to help more elephants internationally as financial. I know that was a mouthful and probably faster than to speak a little bit quickly. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Kat and see if you guys have any other questions as we go forward.
Right on.
Do you have anything?
Yeah, I mean, we listened to some of the, so I think there's some questions that everybody's asking. All of them. We can address those. Everybody have those. That everybody's asked about. Chronic asked the same question with all of the organizations that have participating as far as percent. So, as Sarah said, we are a small. We received our first elephant 5 years ago. So we are a little proud of ourselves. The property, which is, but right now more than half of our staff is actually present because we are that. I think it's great, first off, that you guys like to look at financials. Sarah will share a site called Charity Navigator. You guys can get any charity that you want to donate to. It shows the percentage that you're asking. But it also rates everybody and talks about other high salaries paid and a good idea of where you give. So as far as the percentages, on Charity Navigator, they run a year behind. So our last financials are fundraising and management percent 7.5 with 92% going to program services. That will, we are generally how we fund everything. That percentage will go up next year of Indigo. Scott hired development staff because although I have been doing fundraising for 5 years, fundraising elephant. So we figured it was about time to hire staff that actually have a background in this so that we step. So the percentage this up probably be about 13, but
briefly touched on the details about property here in Brazil. Project is about 2,800 acres. The land is paid off for a young organization. Town did get a donation to go 400,000 pay off. Completely unexpected and tremendous for our organization size. So we are operating debt free. Very nice place to be, but also it's going to allow us to do so much more for elephant. Part of bringing more people on, Kat was touching base on, is we have 6 elephants, that are waiting. And we're going to need caregivers to liberate away from the computer and back into elephant care because these 6 elephants. Right now we have 5 female Asian elephants. We have 2 more female Asian, 3 Africans, hopefully 2 male. So it's going to be a lot of growth here in the 12 herd. Use our skills where they're best suited. Recovery.
and one of the other big questions I was asked, what would we do the 100,000? And for us, it would completely go to program. Right now, we're finishing construction for L8. It will be the first contact facility that offers vast space. So once we finish that shift with that, that's partially funded. Percent goal for that. Fortunately, is super expensive. Load of steel about project about, and that's without source and labor. Taking on elephant is pretty expensive. But the reality, there is no. There are a couple of North America, and there are different politicians that were passing in South again. But know that there was some
Pat, you and Scott are cutting out quite a bit. And I'm afraid that we're losing some really valuable information. So let me know if you want me to hop in at any point.
You can if you want. Go ahead.
Great. Awesome. Well, I think that part of what they were saying is what we would do should we win the 100K is basically expansion. You may have heard Scott say that we have at least 6 elephants that are on the list to join us in Brazil. The next two, hopefully, will be 2 Asian elephants that will join the 5 female Asian elephants that we already have. And after that, we have 3 female African elephants, which will be our first African elephants at the sanctuary. And then we hope to take on at least 1 Asian male, if not more. And it's very rare for sanctuaries to take male elephants because they have an unfair, bad reputation. But if you treat them with the same respect that we treat all elephants with, and work with protected contact and make sure that they're listened to and trained with in the gentle ways that we do use, then they're not as dangerous as they have a reputation to be. They can be quite docile in all actuality. So what we would do is expand for these female African elephants, and currently our male Asian habitat has been funded. But basically, the more money that we get, the more we can expand. The female African habitat costs almost $400,000 in total. 2,300 meters of fencing is needed, 75 acres, and part of the expansion of the female habitat would be adding 250 acres, which would allow us to bring in 16 additional elephants. So I'm going to see if Kat and Scott have the ability to hop back in now.
Oop. We just lost them again.
And they're gone. Okay. So let me look at the chat and see if there are any other questions. I tried to put some information in there about the percentages that are spent. I think that I explained that, and Kat did explain a little bit of this if you got it, that our admin costs will go up. Scott at first was the only paid employee, and Kat is a volunteer. And we have a few elephant caregivers that were working with us. But of course, as you add elephants, that means that you need additional caregivers, and those caregivers need training because, as you would imagine, there are not a lot of people in the world that are experts in caring for elephants. So it takes a good deal of training to get the proper care for these elephants. And Carlos, I'm afraid that if we won the 100K, we probably would not be able to name our next elephant Noodle just because they already have names.
I'm not offended by it. It's all right.
That's good. But we are also we are a member of the Global Federation of Animal Sanctuaries, and there are only 3 elephant sanctuaries in the world that are accredited by this organization, and we are the only one that's not in the United States that's accredited by this organization. And I'm trying to see what else I have wanted to talk about. But yes, Scott was talking about right now our pilot project is in Brazil, and we hope to help as many people in Brazil as possible and as many elephants in Brazil as possible. And once we get a staff on hand there, we can move to other countries where there is a great need. For instance, one that's in Asia. And we work hand in hand with a lot of other organizations because, again, the elephant care community all over the world is not large. We have a lot of people from zoos and organizations like that, and this is not, to talk badly about zoos because there are a number of zoos out there that do really good work, but there are also a lot of zoos out there that do not do good work, and they might try to provide an adequate home for these elephants, but it's almost impossible. You can spend millions and millions of dollars and end up giving elephants a few acres, to wander around, and but that's not sufficient for them to walk, and as they walk in nature, it naturally wears down the foot pads and the nails. And as Scott mentioned, foot problems is the number one killer of captive elephants in the world. If they sustain themselves based on natural food, like trees, branches, vines, grass, things like that, then that is a healthy natural diet similar to the one that they would have in the wild. And a zoo can't provide that. They're going to have a lot of concentrated pellets or things like that, and they're going to put a flake or two of hay down a chute every once in a while, just so that the elephant can have some sort of interaction. And whereas if they're in the wild and they have acres upon acres of land, then they're doing what they're supposed to do as elephants, which is wander around, make their own decisions about what to do, what to eat, who to hang out with. Basically, every single decision is theirs to make. We, of course, monitor them to make sure that we see them every day. We don't go up and interact and touch them or anything like that unless it's necessary. We do medical checkups and foot treatments and things like that. But we want limited contact with them because that's much more similar to what they would experience in the wild. So our goal is to allow them to live out the rest of their lives with proper medical care, but also being able to have the freedom of choice that was taken from them when they were put into captivity. They will never be able to be released into the wild, even though we wish with our whole hearts that were possible. These elephants were not raised, most of them, in herds, so they don't have the proper skills to take care of themselves. And it would basically be a death sentence if we were to put them out in the wild without any observation or anything like that. And it looks like Kat and Scott are maybe back again, so maybe we should give them another chance. Or maybe I'm wrong. So does anybody else have a question or something you'd like me to address? Anything at all?
Personally, I don't have anything. I learning a little bit more and hearing you guys talk off just immediately reinforces my decision to vote for you guys as my choice. It sounds like an organization that is just starting in their process seems like it's a better use of that money. It'll go, it's where you're building, and it's just, I think it'll be I would love to hopefully be able to do this.
Well, I mean, we're thankful for that as well. And to see your question about what inspired me to join the team. In all honesty, I am the only person that works at the organization that has no animal experience. But I became familiar with Scott and Kat and their work, and a position came open. And just, if you ever get a chance to hear Scott talk or experience anything with them, he has a passion for elephants that is unmatched. I've never seen anyone have a passion for anything in my life the way Scott has a passion. Once he knows that there is a need, no matter how hard it is in his life and in Kat's life, to making the decision to move to Brazil was hard for them. It was almost impossible. And it was almost a crazy decision. Pardon me, that's probably not a good word to use. But once you know there's a need, it's almost impossible to turn your back on them. So, are you back, guys? I hate to run my mouth when I hope that they might be there, because they're so much more intelligent and they can speak to this much better than I can. But I just want to let you know that the depth of the damage that these elephants experience can really only be revealed by the level of healing that you witness. The elephants guide us. They tell us what they need. We don't put our expectations on them. You know, we don't come to them and transport them safely and allow them to come welcome them into our sanctuary and expect them to know what to do. We allow them to introduce themselves to the elephants in their own time, and to get used to everything. It's all brand new. This is complete sensory overload for them. They have to basically start from scratch and learn how to be an elephant all over again, because they've been told that they were attractions. You know, they've been beaten, they've been abused horribly, they've been on chains, so many of them, and they've harmed humans, and so we get told, well, this is a bad elephant. You're never going to be able to save this elephant. And, you know, what happens is that elephant saves herself or himself just by being introduced to an environment that meets their basic needs and offers them the space and time to heal both physically and emotionally, and even, you know, perhaps if you believe spiritually it is appropriate in that case, then yes, that too. And you may have seen sanctuaries that allow tourists to come or to feed elephants and things like that. Ours is very different. We use what's called protected contact. And that's not only protection for the humans, but it creates a space for the elephants to feel safe, so that they don't have to worry about their actions towards people. So we do have fences between the humans and the elephants. And the elephants know, you know, we go through a process with them where they know basically how to interact safely with humans. But we do this with positive reinforcement training. And you know, at this point, they don't really need us. And you know, if you were in the grocery store and somebody ran up to you and gave you a hug, you would not be excited about that. Or at least most people I know would not be. So you know, we try to have as little physical interaction as possible. That doesn't mean we don't have emotional relationships with them, but at the same time, in their natural environment, they would absolutely not have contact with people. So what have I missed in the chat? Just wanted to hear any stories about individual elephants that you might have, what their personality is like. Well, let's see here. The first two elephants that we brought to Sanctuary, their names were Maya and Gita, and they were circus elephants, and they had worked in the circus together for decades. And they were basically considered mortal enemies. They were constantly pitted against one another. Sometimes in circuses, they will do that on purpose. They will cause conflict between two elephants as a way to control them. So Maya was constantly attempting to harm Gita, but we brought them both in at the same time. And basically, within a day and a half to 2 days, they became inseparable. Maya became more of a passive elephant and allowed Gita to be more of the dominant one in the relationship, but it was a true relationship, the likes of which we've never seen. Gita unfortunately passed very suddenly, which does happen with these elderly elephants, and sometimes you know when it's going to happen, and sometimes it's a surprise. And with Gita, she always said she was an elephant that was going to live forever. But unfortunately, she passed, and Maya's strong, and she is attempting to build relationships with other elephants. But there's no way that that's not going to impact her. Question is, how old is Maya? What's that?
Hey, Sarah, can you hear me any better?
Yes. Do you want to take over? That'd be great.
I don't know that I want to take over. You're doing a great job. But let me know if it starts cutting out again. I think Kat's on a chat that somebody will let us know if it starts cutting out again, or somebody can jump in. I'm so sorry for the technical difficulty. I am not sure what you guys heard from us or not. So I will just kind of take over where Sarah left off a little bit with Maya and Gita. In a nutshell, these two elephants lived together on circus for 40 years, and they fought for 40 years. Less than 12 hours after being at the sanctuary, everything changed. They just looked at each other differently, and the next day they are completely free, living in the same space, wandering around, playing in mud wallows, socializing, vocalizing. And what transpired over the next few months was really astounding, because they went from being roommates to being best friends. They started protecting one another. When one would take a nap, the other would stand over top of them to protect each other. As they explored the habitat, they weren't always side by side, but they were always in constant contact. And not only to watch them explore their friendships, but watch them explore individual growth was, again, it's astounding. And there are truly no words to fully describe what Sanctuary does for these elephants. And I think Sarah touched on it a little bit with, we provide the space, we provide the respect, we provide their protection. We hold a very high reverence for who they are as individuals and as species. But so much of the healing is what they do in their time, the autonomy that they have to explore their life. It's astounding, it's unfathomable, it's beautiful, and it's really what their life should be.
I think most people have gotten a slight taste over the past couple of years of what happened to lose choice. I think autonomy is something people don't realize how important it is, how much it shapes who you are, until you begin to use it. And most elephant captivity, unfortunately, don't have choice. Even if they're in, a nice place, it's waking up at the same time every day, breakfast, having, walking, the same 30 steps, closure. They lose who they are. It was always this knowledge when you looked at elephants that they're just a shell of who they are, but now there's scientific backing to show the literal brain damage that happens with big brain like elephants and primates when they are in these spaces and they aren't able to use their brain and they aren't able to express things, and they feel like they can't, and how damaging that is as a being. We get the opposite side of that spectrum. We get to see the beautiful recovery that happens when something as simple as giving them the choice of where to go and what trail to walk, who they want to hang out with that day. Something that seems, like such a basic need, but that most animals in captivity don't. And they start to remember what it's supposed to be an elephant, discover who they are. The best. So it's interesting.
Before we go further, can somebody give us feedback on how that audio is? Is that any better for you?
Yeah, it's much better. It's skipping a little bit, but it's not cutting out as much.
Okay, thank you. So I guess with all that's been discussed, do you guys have additional questions? Anything else you want to discuss? Any more details or anything you want us to go over that wasn't clear?
And again, I would just like to reiterate that we're a young organization. We have, as Kat and Scott as I said about them, they have, between the two of them, 50 plus years of experience working with elephants. And they, Scott has founded a sanctuary before. So while we have a lot of experience, we are still in the building phase, and these funds would be extraordinarily helpful for what we're due. Basically, the more money we raise, the more elephants that we can save, and the fewer elephants die in captivity without ever knowing what it's like to make their own decisions. So
I think that's an important point that, we've often said, 10 days of sanctuary is better than none at all. And a lot of times people are concerned about moving these older elephants. And we really believe 10 days is better than nothing at all. And one elephant that proved that more than anybody was Ramba. She actually, because of bureaucratic delays, because of, no sanctuary option was available, she was removed. We actually helped remove her from the circus back in 2012. And she went to a temporary home while waiting for our sanctuary to be in existence. And that was before we even started Global Sanctuary for Elephants. It took 7 years for us to be able to finally make things ready for her to come. And when she arrived, she was a completely different elephant within the first steps. We had some documentary crews that were with us, and they looked at her and said, how is this possible? They were with us in Chile. They saw her in Chile, and they saw her after a plane trip over the Andes, 2 days on the road, and saw this 60-plus-year-old elephant come off the trailer and just look radiant. The next morning, the same documentary crew saw her and they said, wow, what happened overnight? And there's no way to describe it. It is just the essence of sanctuary, the essence of when you have a space that is theirs for the first time. Ramba started to explore immediately. She crossed that property, what she had available to her, over and over and over again, explored every nook and cranny. Unfortunately, she only had 2.5 months before her chronic kidney disease took her life. But it was the most remarkable, beautiful 2.5 months that I've ever seen celebrated. And this is what sanctuary is. This is what sanctuary is supposed to be, where you just give them a chance of rediscovery of what it means to be who they are, what it means to be an elephant, what it means to be a friend. Going back to Maya and Gita, it was not only what it is to be a friend to the other, but how to be what your friend wants you to be or what your friend needs from you. And it's about being vulnerable as well. Maya was a big, boisterous elephant who hurt a lot of people, and she hurt Gita. She was known as an aggressive elephant. That aggression was based on insecurity. That aggression was hiding and masking who she was on the inside. And now when you get to see, that light explorer, she had to understand what it meant to be vulnerable and put herself out there in the world to be hurt, but also to start feeling all that comes along when you open your heart on that level. And it is, again, we can say over and over again, it's extraordinary, it's unfathomable, it's amazing. And, there really are no words that I know to fully describe what it means for these elephants. Sarah touched base on it. We're a young organization. We have a long way to go. Unfortunately, there are not a lot of people that have done what we've done in our past. And we're needed in more locations in the United States. Global Sanctuary Elephants, more locations in the world. Global Sanctuary for Elephants needs to expand. Your support would be tremendous for helping get Elephant Sanctuary Brazil to a stronger place, to be able to change the lives of more elephants, and also put us on a road to be able to help more elephants internationally. Are you guys able to hear that?
Yeah, yep. We heard everything.
Okay. I'm not sure how much more time we have. I know that it's been going for about 45 minutes now. Are there any questions that we can answer before people need to check out? We're happy to stay on as long as people want to keep talking, but let us know.
Anybody raising their hands? Anything? Flight deck chat too. I personally do not. You guys have been very articulate in explaining everything, and this is freaking awesome.
We appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want to say, we really, no matter what happens to this, the fact that you guys wanted something, we often have donors apologize for what they consider a small gift. We wish And we tell them the reality is there are tons of people around the planet that to help further anything. So the fact that you guys decided to go ahead and be fantastic all for us.
Absolutely. Every little bit, bringing attention to what you guys are doing is important. That's what we, yeah.
And thanks with all of the audio. Awesome.
Awesome. All right. Now I got to stop. Cocktails and staring at reading the stories of all the elephants is not mixing well. Getting way too emotional.
That's the whole point. We have to be vulnerable to our own growth as well, and open your hearts to the elephants. It'll change your world forever.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Does anybody else have any questions on anything? I mean, you guys covered a ton, and I mean, well, if there's anything we come up with, we have you guys in chat now to go through things with. Check.
Absolutely. And Sarah, sorry that you had to step in, but we very much appreciate doing.
Oh, thanks to everyone here. Thanks to NoodleArms, Specialist J, Strain Evie, all you guys. We appreciate how much help you've given us throughout this entire process.
Sure. I think at this point, it's a good stopping point for everybody. Thank you guys for going through so much. Definitely going to be more vocal about pushing, hopefully be able to support you guys. So thank you guys so much. If nobody else has anything to add to it, go make another cocktail and read elephant stories for the next 3 hours.
There's a lot of them out there, and from what we hear, we get to live it each day, but from what we hear, people never get enough of it. So we have more to come. And thanks again, NoodleArms. We appreciate you supporting us. For everybody out there, that said, thanks for stepping up to make it.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you to NoodleArms, all of the Global Sanctuary for Elephants representatives, and thank you for everybody here for bearing with all of this. Really appreciate it.
Bye, guys.
Very much.
Take care.
Bye, everyone.